knowledge and experience. Forgot.
Yeah. Could you start over his introduction, please?
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna start his introduction over. Okay, Anthony Goddard is the owner of New Tech Support and Host USA. Anthony has worked in the IT industry for nearly 20 years. His passion and love for technology was the driving force that led him to gain a great deal of knowledge and experience at a young age. Anthony's Host USA business handles websites and emails for thousands of clients. The core value Anthony brings to his clients is security for businesses and residential by keeping you and your family safe both on and offline. Anthony is a father of 4 children and 2 bonus children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Yes, he knows, yes, he is aware that that's a lot. When Anthony isn't working his business, he spends time with his kids and sports activities. His passion is developing websites, mobile apps, and cryptocurrency.
Good morning, everybody. Is it still too early? Well, let's scare everybody with some cybersecurity stuff, right? So yeah, as she said, just kind of give a little bit more introduction. I own a New Tech Support business in Adams County. We service, Adams County, Brown County, Highland County, clear to Cincinnati. Honestly, when I was young, it was one of those goals to be the next Bill Gates. Don't necessarily agree with some of his moral values, so that kind of changed a little bit. But in general, technology was a love and passion. I was the kid that got the Game Boy device, play it for a little bit, rip it apart, learn how it was designed and operated, and then put it back together and play with it more and rip it apart. So technology has been really a big passion of mine. Gosh, I think I worked on my first computer when I was like 10 years old, and just seeing how it operated. And so growing from that and understanding where we were, at 20 years at that point, just in the technology industry, and where the future was going, I knew that we were getting into an age of cybersecurity and the issues and what everyone was going to have to deal with. And the reality of that was scary in general because it's new. Technology is new and it's still new. And understanding, and like I said, I have a passion for cryptocurrency, and that may scare a lot of people, but it's a new type thing. They're good and bad with those things. But understanding more about that technology and where it's driving to, there can be some good to it. But anyway, so as she mentioned as well, you know, we have a huge family, and I understand how that sounds and how big that is. But you know what? A lot of alcohol is a joke. But anyway, so again, we handle a lot of IT work, and it ranges from simple IT stuff to we have clients that have 200 employees at the business. And so that's why understanding small business and large business and cybersecurity and this specific topic, I think was a great opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak about this and certainly go over everything. And this is something that you have to go to college, or you don't have to go to college for, but they offer college courses and certifications and degrees in cybersecurity. So the reality of it is we're not going to be able to go over everything today. So I'm hoping to touch a few high topic points that will help you. Or scare you to you don't want to use the computer anymore. That'll help cybersecurity and the threats and stuff like that in general. But in general, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of dig right into where we're at. Stuff set up here real quick. Cisco.com explains cybersecurity in a quick paragraph, but obviously there's a lot more to it, but I'm just going to read exactly what they say. So cybersecurity is a practice of protecting systems and networks and the programs from digital attacks. These cyber attacks are usually aimed at accessing or changing or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users via ransomware or interrupting normal business processes. That's what it is in a nutshell. We deal with cyber threats because you have attackers and people that want to exploit information. They want to use your sensitive data to either destroy you, destroy your business, destroy your family, or the reality is they're trying to get money from you and exploit that. So that's really what cybersecurity is in that nutshell. Obviously, it goes more in depth with all the different type of threats and stuff. Cybersecurity, so what? It is becoming more known now than it was even 5 years ago that cybersecurity and the cyber threats is something that needs to be taken seriously. It's not something that needs to be taken lightly. We live in an age where just a simple password in your password is not acceptable anymore. Everybody does everything online to some type of degree and carries sensitive information online. And so the reality of it, a password is your password is something that for you personally and for your business should not be acceptable. I don't mean to make it sound like I'm attacking that, but the reality of it is you got to take it serious and use something more secure to protect yourself and your business. It just has some commonly used names: bad actors, hackers, cyber attacks. There's a whole list of other different type of commonly used things in that realm. But the reality of it is we all know hackers as kind of the more well-known one for that. Cybercrime is basically the digital version of crime in general. Somebody goes and robs the banks, that's the type of crime. Cybercrime is what it's called, typically in the technology realm. And so what is it? Cybercrime is any crime which is committed electronically. That can be theft, fraud, and even murder. Why should you care? Crime is danger online and offline. I mean, regardless. It's dangerous regardless. Cyber defense basics can go a long way to keeping you and your data out of the hands of the bad actors or hackers. I have another slide that I'm going to kind of touch on that a little bit more. But think about it this way: if you put your car in a crowded area, you're going to lock your doors. You're going to keep somebody from having the easy opportunity to get into your car. You have valuables, you don't want them to get in your car, even if you don't have valuables, you don't want them to get returned. Cyber and everything you do online needs to be treated the same way. You're not going to give easy access to somebody to steal your data. And again, we all live in a world where most of our data is stored online anyways. Private, personal information, whether personal or business, and it all needs to be protected. Like I said, I have another slide and we'll go a little more in depth with that because it's all of our responsibility. It's not just the IT company's responsibility. We'll offer guidance, we'll offer those things and obviously help put those backup recoveries and those things in place, but it's everyone's responsibility. We can go into those slides regarding that. On the slide there, I just have a few examples of basically what cybercrime is. Malware and social engineering are probably what you hear a lot more of from a cybersecurity piece of it. Obviously, it's identity theft and all that type of stuff, but there's different measures and different things you got to take to help with those types of stuff. All right, so we've heard of malware. Everyone has probably had to either deal with malware at some point in time. And basically, the simple term for malware is malicious software. It gets on your system and it's used for a purpose to either steal data or access data that it can then use to exploit other type of information regarding your business or your personal life and such. The software, again, it's intended to cause damage, disable, or give somebody else unauthorized access to your system or network if it's connected to the internet. And why should you care? Most cybercrime begins with some sort of malware. It's kind of the first block. If you are not necessarily taking the protection and stuff up front, malware is pretty much going to be the first thing that gets on your system, and then the data is going to be exploited. Or they're going to use something on that system to exploit something else. Maybe that's, for a prime example, if you get malware on your home system and on your phone or your laptop, and you bring that to a business, that information that was exploited on that laptop or whatever device can then be exploited in the business. And so then it brings it into the business. So taking those precautions obviously up front, and we'll kind of go a little bit more into what those precautions can look like to help protect. Obviously, your antivirus and your malware protection and those type of things are going to be very beneficial. But there's other means to get malware in the system. And again, we'll go into that a little bit more on an email section slide, but email, understanding an email that comes in, if it's safe or not. If there's a link in there and it looks suspicious, we've all heard the thing that says, use your gut. Most of the time you got to use your gut. If you see an email come in that looks suspicious or there's something off about it, one, you want to check who it's from. They can say my name, but it may come up from a whole different email address. But you're only reading the name. You said, oh, Anthony Goddard, safe, no problem. Click a link, done. I mean, they're going to have access to your system to any degree with that information. The examples inside are basically some terms within the malware realm. Ransomware, which you've probably heard of. Ransomware is a little bit more of, they hold your data hostage. That is probably the most common type of malware, and it's the most commonly successful because it's super quick and super easy. And think about it. If your data is locked up, what do you want to do? You want to do everything you can to retrieve that data. Ransomware, they're going to make you pay for your data. As a IT professional and what I do, never pay the ransom, never. That's why it's best to take the precautions up front to back up your data, or in general, try to mitigate anything that you get on the systems that you have to worry about that anyways. Because the reality of it is you could pay the ransomware and they won't release your data. The other part is you pay it, they release your data, but they put other software on there that sets a timer that says 6 months later, it locks it up again, and you're back in the same boat. Typically, and I'll give you an example about this, the client that I had. But typically, it locks everything, which is detrimental. But a client that I had, this is actually how I got the client. They called me one Friday and said, hey, we heard from the grapevine, you do IT stuff. We have this issue. And they didn't really go in depth with what it was. So it sounded like it was just a simple virus, no big deal. They said, come Monday. They was the end of the day, came Monday. After getting there and finding out what happened, every single bit of their data was locked up. Now, this is a business that's been in business for, I think, almost 20 years. And it was an attorney. And so you can imagine 20 years of digital data from client information and all the personal stuff, financial information, and everything they did was locked up. Unfortunately, they didn't have proper backups, but fortunately, there was a mechanism I was able to use to retrieve that data and then push everything to an offsite backup. But I literally asked, and this is something I don't think any of my regular clients would hear, but this is something I always ask, literally the first day I meet you, what type of offsite do you guys have? Because that is very detrimental to, in the case of ransomware and other things that could lock up your data and hurt you. What type of backups do you have that can restore that? Because for that client, the question was, if we could retrieve this data, where does that leave you? They would have been done. There's no reviving that business. They would have been done. 20-year business done in a matter of minutes, really. And come to find out, it was an email that one of the other employees clicked on that it looked legit, but digging into a little bit more of a suspicious and ended up putting some malware on the system and locked up all the data. We won't go into the rest of them. I'm sure you guys have heard of them. Adware. Adware is basically ads that pop up and it looks catchy. It looks, eye-catchy. Click it and then it loads the malware on your system. Rootkit, spyware, virus forms, and all that stuff. I'm sure you've heard of that. Really, all of them go in hand with if you're taking the precautions up front. And don't let that be alarming to you as far as like sitting there thinking like, what do you have on your system right now that's going to scare you? You got to run out of here. But if you're doing a lot of stuff up front, especially with the emails, you're looking for the little bit of signs that is it suspicious? Is it truly from an email address that of somebody you know? Does it seem like it's a normal activity from that person? Too many times I've seen, especially in larger businesses, where the financial advisor or someone who has access to the banks in the business will get an email from a CEO, and it'll look legit, and it'll be asking them for some type of transaction or something like that, but basically gives information regarding routing number, account number, those type of things. is that an act of the CEO or whoever's asking that? Is that normal? Probably not. Or if it's a small business like most of you are, they're probably going to come to you face to face and have a face to face conversation. In that case, what I would recommend is if you get an email like that, call the person. Call the person that supposedly sent the email and said, "Hey, I got this email. Is this legit? I don't want to move forward unless I know that it's legit." So we can spend probably all day on that one directly, but actually kind of touched on ransomware. So a lot of the examples on the side are basically ransomware terminology that has been used over the years of different type of ransomware. I don't know if any of those would look familiar to you guys, but they're basically just some examples of what ransomware is called. At the end of the day, it's ransomware. It's basically walking your data and holding a hostage for you. So, like I said, malware is designed to make data or hardware inaccessible to the victim until a ransom is paid. You'll probably see emails with that come through as they want you to pay through Bitcoin or some type of other cryptocurrency. And I'm using the word cryptocurrency. There's good and bad with it. In this case, it's bad. But the reason that they want you to use Bitcoin or a means of like that is because it's untraceable. If once it reaches the other person's wallet, there's no way for you directly or even an IT person to follow that enough to be like, oh, this is such and such bank account. Boom, it's the whole harder to do that. Unless there's been some other type of tracking with that person's wallet that has associated with the name, it's really hard to determine that. So we kind of went over some of that stuff. Typically they come through an email link. They damage both financial stability and reputation. This is kind of that point too. I mean, just look at that client, a 20-year business. Fortunately, we were able to retrieve data, but that 20-year business was crippled, done. I mean, they were in a matter of seconds because of a small decision that was made was going to cripple that business, and they were going to shut down. Again, fortunately for that situation, and with all of my clients, we always, that's the number one thing we do is we always work on doing some type of offsite backup as that protection, because let's face it, there is no 100% guaranteed way to protect anything across the board. But there are things you can do that can take place that can protect yourself. And the reality of it is, you want to give the hacker a hard time to get your data. And then the hacker is going to look at it, is it worth it? Is it worth spending the time to go after this person or this business? No, they're going to be more focused on spending those hours or days or months or years even on businesses that are $1 billion businesses. Just because it's more worth their time. If you eliminate those easy accesses, you're just going to help your case and help your business's case. Bots is another word that's used, and you see over here is, did you know don't not all bots are bad. Search engine use bots, Siri and Alexa actually use bots. So there are good bots. So don't think of the word bot as something that's bad. But then there is the bad part too. And bots are typically set up to, and they'll come in through a form of malware or an email link or stuff like that. And their goal is to gather passwords, log keystrokes, obtain financial information, hijack social media accounts, and then use your email to send spam. That's part of the other email issue that we're going to get into. And then open backdoors on the infected device. And that's typically the purpose of a bot. And a bot is essentially, it's doing what a human can't do at that moment, but in the background of your system, that's handing all your passwords over, handing all of your keystrokes over. So if you're logging in your bank account, you're doing transactions between this routing number and this routing number, it's going to log all that. Again, taking the precautions and usually having a good virus protection is going to help. Obviously, you hope to not get to that point that virus protection needs to take place by doing the things at the beginning and helping not click certain links and those type of things. Physical cyber attacks, those are typically, this is something that I always advise is, if you see a thumb drive laying on the ground, do not plug it into any system. Really, unless you know that belongs to somebody directly, You're smiling. Do you do that one? Oh, okay. So it's what I've been guilty of. You know, we've all been guilty of it. Usually, in the case of from my side, especially from an IT standpoint, usually I have my systems set up that are offline and dedicated to handle that, because I have a lot of businesses that, especially several of the attorney clients that I have, you know, they're getting thumb drives from their clients. And as a precaution of protection, they need to make sure that there's nothing on there from, you know, the residential client's system that's going to hinder their business. And so I have systems that are dedicated and specifically designed, they're completely offline, that I can look at those devices. But CDs and DVDs are kind of, I guess we're old school in CDs now, but if you still see one, don't put it in the system, which I don't think any of the newer systems, you have the CD-ROM drives, so you don't have to worry about that. Internet of Things, that's a combination of just everything it has to do with what's plugged into the internet. I mean, our cars are now driven by technology and accessing the internet. It's a great feature, but our cars are just as easily as can be hacked as our cell phones or our laptops and devices nowadays. I'm sure you guys have heard stories about, I think it was a Tesla that got hacked, and it had drove somebody into basically made their car crash because their system found out got hacked. And I can't remember the details, but I do know that there was some form of, I don't know if it was USB drive or something that they connected to their car, which originally had malware on it, which then infected their system. Really, I'm very good about any type of thumb drive that has, oh, just even hear my presentation today. I hadn't used that thumb drive in probably a year. I wiped it clean before I ever put anything on there to then put on her system, because I knew from my side and her side, it's going to protect us. And honestly, I don't necessarily like using thumb drives as a backup measure, simply because they can fail. They can fail in general, and two, how many times we left them in our pants and we went through the washer and then your data's gone anyways. So in all reality, using a thumb drive as a storage mechanism or a backup mechanism is probably not advised. There's so many opportunities nowadays with Dropbox and all that. You can obviously protect yourself, and we'll get into a little bit more of how you can protect yourself if you're using top of Dropbox and stuff like that. But physical cyber attacks come to those type of things. Again, it's just common sense. You see a thumb drive, it's not yours, and you don't know it belongs to somebody, don't plug it into your system. I think we kind of went over a lot of the why should you care. Social engineering. This is a huge one nowadays, especially when you get the word social. This is not just with like Facebook and social media accounts. This comes with somebody, and when you see the examples over there, phishing, pretexting, baiting, all those type of things come into place with some type of social engineering. And the reality is, as a quick example, it comes to, you get an email, it sounds like your CEO, they're trying to use phishing and social interaction because you're seeing, oh, your CEO name, of course that makes sense. Send that information. That's really what it comes down to on social engineering. I'll show you what it says. Cyber criminals can take advantage of you by using information commonly available through social media platforms, location sharing, in-person conversations. Think about it. You're at Starbucks, you're in a conversation with an employee or even a personal connection. Somebody could be sitting there on the sideline and listen to your conversation. How many times do we have to make a personal call and we have to give, let's say, our last 4 digits of our social security number over the phone? And let's say we trust that enough that we're willing to do that. Who's over here listening to that information? I can't tell you how many times I've been into business and they've had clients in there, and that business directly will be reading off routing number, account numbers right there. There's a lobby full of people. And if I can hear it as the IT person who's moving around quite a bit, who can hear that information? So it's really come down to watch what you say from that side of it. And then obviously location sharing. If you haven't already, if there's a reason that you need to have this on, fine. But location sharing on every one of our smartphones is turned on when we take a picture. Every time you take a picture, you have location sharing that is tagged to that photo. If you post that to Facebook, a hacker can hijack that information and see exactly where it was taken at, or where you're at. We'll get into more of a physical, I have a slide for physical, but that comes into place when there is more of a physical threat that's still utilizing cybersecurity or cyber threats against you and stuff. And like I said, I got another slide on that one. Phishing. So phishing is probably where we're going to spend just a little bit more time at, because that comes into play with the emails. And I think my next slide, so I'll get that in a second, is kind of an image of an email that may look legit, but it's got all the signs that basically determine that it's not legit. So I'm just going to read this real quick. Phishing attacks are counterfeit communications that appear to come from a trustworthy source, but which can compromise all types of data sources. Attacks can facilitate an access to your online accounts and personal data, business data and everything within the business as well. Obtain permissions to modify and compromise connected systems. Again, if you, on your personal system, so I'll give you the example of the client again that had the ransomware on the system. It didn't just hit the one system. It hit every system within that building. And there was probably 15 systems. It's good for IT. It's obviously money-wise, it's great, but for that client, it's bad because at the end of the day, we wiped all the systems. That was our only option, to wipe every system and every server that was in that building. Think about it. I mean, I probably spent 2 to 3 hours per system. And it was probably about a 2-week span, and that client essentially was down. Luckily, we were able to restore the data, and they were able to do some other stuff on some other systems that were originally connected to the network. But 15 systems, we shut them all down, took them offline, and wiped them all, and reloaded them, and had to start from scratch on those systems. And that's how detrimental it is. I'm going to go over a couple stats real quick that I had taken. And this is probably going to scare you a little bit, but I think if you're scared enough to be on the lookout for things all the time, it's going to help you. But these are just basically some cyber attacks that happened, and so far, basically per day in the year 2020. Globally, there are over 30,000 websites that get hacked, actually on an hourly basis at this point. 64% of companies worldwide have experienced at least one form of cyber attack. There are, in 2021, there were 22 billion breached records. And that's a combination of health records, financial records, and all that kind of stuff, but 22 billion is a lot. In 2021, you can only imagine where we're at in 2022 now, but 2021, ransomware cases grew by 92%. And that's why it is even more critical and crucial today to protect yourself and look for those signs, and look for the things that are really going to help your business, and it's not just from business, it's your personal life as well. Every 39 seconds, there is a new attack somewhere on the web. Every 39 seconds. I mean, it's just, I've been up here. I mean, what hundreds of thousands of attacks have already happened on the web just since we've been up here. I've been up here. And this is the other part that's probably going to be a little more scary, because we are also glued to our mobile devices. But over 24,000 malicious mobile apps are blocked on the internet daily, and that's just daily. And so that's why it's also very important. And this isn't a knock on Android, but that's why it's even more crucial with Android specifically, that when you're downloading an app, you're making sure that it's coming from a reputable source. You're making sure that it's the actual legit company, because there's cloned apps all the time, just like there's cloned Facebook pages all the time. And I'm sure many of you have experienced your Facebook account getting cloned. And it's not really that it's been hacked. They just clone your Facebook and then they start acting as you. And then whatever they do, then they try to request information from family and friends and all that stuff. But, mobile devices are, I mean, everyone has one, and they're smart devices. And so it's very important to make sure that and it's even important, Again, not just for your personal life, but your business life as well, because if something has gotten on your personal mobile device and you also connect that back to the business's network, you create that vulnerability within the network. That's not to say that if the precautions taking place, that you can't connect to the network of your business. And obviously that's obviously up to the individual business, whether they allow that in general or not. But just think about that. A phone at your own place gets a virus or is vulnerable. You create that same vulnerability within the business. This is another part. The average life, this is what goes along with ransomware and everything else. The average life cycle of a data breach is about 11 months, which means it takes about 7 months a lot of times to identify. Now, when it comes to ransomware specifically, a lot of times because you were on such a time crunch, we don't take the time to figure out exactly what happened. We can assume it came from an email. We can assume it came from a thumb drive somebody plugged in, those type of things. But because we have to act so quickly, a lot of times we just shut all the systems down and we start wiping them to remove anything within that network. But in general, it takes about 7 months to identify a breach, and then another 4 months to secure that breach and figure out if there's a mechanism that we can help mitigate that issue. If it was an email, maybe some training and stuff like that to the employees of what to look for, those type of things. Ransomware is it's an interesting thing, even for IT people, just because I've even taken the time to find the ransomware, put it in an offline system and study it, but it changes so much. There are millions of different type of ransomwares out there that it's hard to distinguish. What I find about this one and how we can solve this one, there's going to be 1,000 more made in that hour that what I learned on this one is not going to help out the other one, kind of thing. So, it's kind of the other one. The other one was more for website stuff, but over 300,000 new pieces of malware are created daily. And honestly, I think that's probably even worse now because of how much more people get connected and have been connected because of COVID and being on their devices a lot more and being just glued to the devices a lot more in general. And they're forced to, from a business standpoint. And that includes things like viruses, adware, Trojan, keyloggers, and at the end of the day, it's to steal people's data. I guess I can kind of talk about this too. You're probably questioning, what can you do to protect yourself? Good virus protection is good. Don't skimp and use something free. Although it's great, it's free. The reality of it is you don't need to skimp and not pay for virus protection, because at the end of the day, you're getting what you pay for. I mean, you're getting a software that is not going to, some of them will say that they update their virus definitions every 30 days. Well, if a new virus definition got released today, your system technically won't get that for 30 days. Well, I don't know about you, but 30 days is too long and too much of a worry that I don't want to take that risk within my business. And so having a paid virus protection, and typically ones that I like to go with are AVG, Bitdefender is a big one that I like a lot more, especially when it comes to businesses. And a lot of my clients, I set them up with what's called an endpoint protection. And so it protects the individual system, and of course a lot of the servers. But what happens is it's a 24-hour monitoring setup. So literally, if there's something on that system that is a potential vulnerability, it may be legit, but a potential vulnerability, I'm alerted to that. And us at New Tech are alerted to that. So that way we can act accordingly. We can take measures and say, hey, there was a vulnerability. Is this legit or is this not? And then we can go from there. And I've had it happen a couple of times where I've gotten alerted of a specific vulnerability. I called that business up and I said, this system needs pulled offline now. Fortunately, because of that, because that monitoring we had, it didn't hit the rest of the network. And so we were able to take the one offline, deal with that. And that, I think that client had probably 75 systems within their business. You can imagine what it took me to do the 15 systems, and now I'm doing 75 systems. So fortunately, because of that monitoring, we were able to deal with it a lot quicker, pull that system offline, and then deal with it directly. And then we were able to dig a little more into specifically talk to the employee, like what happened. And fortunately, or unfortunately, there was an email that came in and they clicked it and it looked legit. They clicked the link, boom, they got hit. So this is just an example of an email these are signs you need to look for. So you'll see things that come from Anthony Goddard. Hey, you know, but if you look at the email, if you saw that email, would you open that up or would you click on it? I would. I mean, obviously that says not quite your work email, but if something came through phishing like that, now there are things like I know, like, I don't know, Amazon, when you get an email from Amazon, it'll have some big long string at Amazon and stuff like that. Stuff like that's a little bit different. But you know, in this case, I would never click on anything in this email. There's something else, and this is kind of would help you out. If you get an email with a link to it, it says click here. Well, you can see what that is. What I would do is I would hover over that and it would tell you what the website is. And anything that has .exe extension, don't click it. Probably 10 times out of 10 going to be some type of malware that's wanting to load on your system. So those are little things. This email in general is asking. So they're trying to act as basically the IT company who's saying there's a vulnerability and wanting you to put a link. I'm gonna tell you right now, from my business, if we would send an email saying something that there's a vulnerability, we are never going to post a link. Most time, we're probably going to call you anyways, and probably work out a time to show up at the location and deal with it from there. But from us, because we're not trying to do anything fishy or anything scammy, we would never post a link like that in an email. Now there has been times where, like if I even get remote access to the client, I will, and I haven't already had some type of remote access set up prior. I might send a website, but that website is actually listed exactly what the website is, and it doesn't say click here to run this app. And so, but again, I'm probably going to be in the location, and most of the time I'm going to show up with the business anyways, and I'm going to take care of that from my end because I'm the one with the link, and at that point I'm going to click it and know what to do. But this is kind of an example. I know Lisa had mentioned that email is probably something that most of you deal with, and emails are just, again, that's where most of the ransomwares come from. And it's evolving more every day and becoming more. I mean, if you've never went to your spam box, I'd go to your spam box just to look. Don't click anything. Please don't click. Unless you want to call me, I can help you. But don't click on it. But if you want to look, just look at the type of emails that do come in through your spam, and see the amount of stuff that is being protected from spam, and that isn't, be effective in your system and stuff like that. And you'll probably see some stuff in there like this, or you'll see some stuff in there that seems like it came from the owner of the business or the CEO, or stuff like that. And I'm sure you either see those emails where it talks about they've got personal videos of you dealing with pornography, which is funny because I get those emails and I laugh and I was like, well, I don't do that. So, and usually it's in the email stating that you have to pay them a ransom in order for them to basically delete those videos. Well, if you don't do that, and you get that email, we have nothing to worry about. What video are they going to have? Don't pay the ransom. So you'll probably see stuff like that. Again, caution, probably shouldn't have told you to go to your spam. Don't click on anything, please. So these come in all forms and shapes and sizes. They will do whatever they have to do to manipulate you. The purpose of these emails is to get you to think that I'm your best friend, to click that email. At the end of the day, that's their purpose. And once you do that, it's over. A good virus protection, it depends. It could help you, it could not. I just don't want to take that risk, and I certainly wouldn't want any of my clients to take that risk. Everything that we do, especially within the business, we want to take those precautions up front. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am so busy with a lot of the client stuff that I do that the last thing I want to deal with is deal with ransomware, because that's relieving my time from other clients. that if we can take those precautions up front, to me, that's what makes me happy and what makes new tech support happy, is we can take those precautions up front and protect every single one of them, not just from a business standpoint, but from a residential standpoint. Swatting. So this one is a little bit more scarier because swatting comes into place if you, I mentioned the pictures storing your location. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting because this is a physical thing. If somebody, and you can prank people all the time and calling and you know, making bomb threats and those type of things. But this is where it becomes interesting because if you've got somebody even wanting to cause a prank and you posted a picture online that had your location to it, somebody wanting to cause a prank, they can call in a bomb threat, share your information that they found online. Next thing you know, you've got the SWAT team and the police and everything else showing up at your doorstep. And this is where it becomes physical because think about it. If the cops show up at your house because of a bomb threat, they're not going to be sitting down having a cup of tea with you. They're busting your door down. And if you're like, what's going on? They're going to take you down. And that's where it becomes more of a physical thing to yourself. And that's where taking precautions with location sharing on your devices and your photos are very crucial in making sure that you're handling those things properly. And we all post pictures to social media. There's nothing wrong with that. But you just want to make sure that those things are in place to where your location isn't being shared. And every picture has embedded code. Like I could probably go to several social media accounts in here, if I'm friends with you, and probably pull a picture and look at all the metadata about you, your device, what specific device you took it from, where you took it at, and everything. And honestly, if I want to exploit that information, I can take that information and exploit it from there. And that's how easy it is. And so taking these precautions and making sure that your photos aren't storing that metadata information is really crucial. And that's really more about the swatting, just because you know, it just really comes down to it's a physical thing at that point. And quite frankly, I love pranking, but it's not the type of prank I want to do. It's not a prank I want to be involved in, or somebody busting down my door and causing harm to me or my family because of an issue. So this is just kind of other avenues of an attack. Internet of Things, that's what I was talking about earlier. It's basically every device that's connected to the internet. Cars, cell phones. I mean, our coffee makers are connected to it now. I bought a dryer. So we just got a washer. It's not connected to the internet because I just thought it was pointless at that point. But our washer or our dryer has Wi-Fi capability. And I connected it just because I'm an IT person. I want to check it out. It's cool to lay in bed and start my dryer. But the reality of it is, why? If I'm moving clothes over, I'm going to hit the button anyways. But the reality of it is, it's connected to the network. Somebody could hijack that washer or that dryer and get onto my network if I'm not taking the precautions and stuff that's in place. And so the examples on the side there are just a few, but I mean, there's a whole plethora of other devices, like I said, washer and dryers and coffee makers and toasters and all kinds of stuff that now are connected to the internet. Because those are connected to the internet, they have some sort of storage mechanism inside of it. And because of that, they can be exploited and they can have stuff stored on that. And it may never affect your network, but they're waiting. Those bots, for example, are sitting there waiting for something on your network to be exploited. You know, printers is up there. Printers is a big one. So I was super surprised at how many type of vulnerabilities came through a printer, especially at businesses. But the reality of it is, I'm sure most of us have a printer in our offices and the businesses and use them daily. Now that's not to say that, I mean, it's not like you got to put virus protection on the printer if you can't. It's really just taking measures within the network to mitigate stuff that gets into the network internally. Because honestly, if you've got malware or some type of bot on your printer, at this point, you're screwed. I mean, you're kind of at a point where you probably already had some type of vulnerability or some type of hit to your business anyways. So again, that's just other type of attacks on cars, Bluetooth devices, open ports. Too many times I've seen it where I've heard stories where same scenario, thumb drive. You could be out in public at a laptop sitting at Starbucks, and You ask the person next, I've done this, ask the person next to you, hey, do you care to watch my laptop while I run to the restroom? You get up and use the restroom. Somebody could be sitting on the sideline waiting for people to get up, or plug in their thumb drive, pull it out, and that's how quick you get on your system. And so leaving open ports on your devices is something I now, because of what I've learned and everything else. I'll pack the laptop and take it to the bathroom. Because I don't want to take that hit. And also because of the amount of data and everything that I have to have for my business, and obviously confidential information for my clients and everything else, it is very crucial that I take even more of those extra steps and precautions. Which is, like I said, if a client has a thumb drive that they don't know where it came from or it came from a client, we take that offline and we plug it in to make sure it's protection of the business. Thermostats, one of them, that's one of them that, again, we all have thermostats, and we all have thermostats that we do, or that you can add that can control your temperature and stuff like that within your house. So this is basically just some simple ways. Again, this cybersecurity is something that you go and be certified and degreed on and stuff like that. But these are just some quick points of things you can do to help protect yourself. Secure your networks. Wireless routers are a way your cyber criminal can access online. Because we live in an area of small businesses and wireless access and stuff like that, most of the time people know who's sitting outside their business. So in this case, the wireless router, protect yourself, is if you don't have a password to access your internet, get a password. Put a password on there, protect yourself. Because somebody could be sitting right outside your business and accessing your network. They could be pulling data all day long and you don't even know it. So looking for those things would be beneficial and helpful. Just because if somebody looks suspicious and like it's nothing normal, they could be hijacking your internet. And I can tell you right now, I have had many cases where I've had to deal with people who have hacked networks inside Adams County and Brown County of people because they were sitting in their vehicle outside that business's network and accessing the wireless. Stay up to date. I know as annoying as it is, you can't see in that Windows operating system update probably every morning that you go into work or something like that. But the reality of it is, those are there to help protect. And if there are type of vulnerabilities that Microsoft has created or found, they will patch them and update them. So anytime there is an update, all of my clients, I have them set up on a routine to, I figure out basically time-wise their business. When they're offline, basically when they're out of the business and stuff like that, we set those updates to apply after hours or first thing in the morning before people start getting there. So that way, hopefully they don't have to deal with them during the business day and stuff. Just kind of a common sense at this point, you connect it, protect it. And it just comes down to even your phone, not even from a virus standpoint, but if you don't have a password or PIN code on your phone, protect it. Because now Apple's released to where if I've connected to the Wi-Fi here, which I think it's open, but if it's protected, I can actually go see the password that I put in there originally. And so if your phone is not protected, somebody can walk by if you're not there and grab your phone or even device, tablet and stuff, and they can see the password of that Wi-Fi. So if you're connected to your business, they can see all the Wi-Fi you connected to and all the passwords to. So again, if you connect it, protect it. And then from that standpoint, make sure you have a passcode on your phone. And other devices, laptops and everything. So this is probably where I'm going to probably wrap it up at, is double your login protection. And so it's going to bring me to this piece, and I have one more slide after this, but passwords. It is very crucial nowadays to protect yourself even more with passwords. The word password is not going to cut it anymore. So having the things in there, like the third point, uppercase and lowercase letters and numbers and symbols. I know it's annoying, but I honestly don't want to remember a password. I have all my stuff so protected and everything that I do that it's going to be hard to remember all these different type of passwords. And if it's too long for me to remember, then it's even harder for the hackers to hijack. And so with that point, I would definitely buy a password manager. And you can find them. I'm a big fan of, 1Password. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit about that, but, it's coming to a point, 1Password's really nice because you're thinking about it like not being able to remember a password or, how you're going to store those passwords. A password manager helps you out because you can also have a Chrome extension, which is what I use in Safari extension, where it can autofill your logins to websites. And so to have to remember that password, you can autofill it, or it's a Chrome extension and it'll automatically recognize you on, Amazon.com, and you click it, you copy and paste your username and password there. It's basically a password generator for you, but then it stores everything. I like it because I can sync it with all my devices. Every device, I've got all my stuff set up so much that if I break all my devices right now, I can easily go to my home computer or my other systems, and I've got access to all my data and all my passwords and stuff. And so the next screen here, just kind of an example of how you operate. This is just for the mobile app. You can do all the same stuff from a Chrome browser or the app to your system. But you can generate a password. You don't have to be this high, but every password that I have for every system and everything is 24 characters long. If you think about that password, one that's going to be hard to remember, and it's going to be even harder for the hacker to try to hijack, or try to decipher or decrypt and get into something. This program is a really good program just because I like it because you all hear the one-time passcodes. It will send you a text with the passcode, or you can use an app that will generate a code for you. And those, in this case, it resets every 30 seconds. So if I'm logging in for this, if it's dummy, so no one copy this password, it's not going to get you anything. But this resets every 30 seconds. So if I'm logging into that website, this code's not going to do the same thing 30 seconds later. So if a hijacker takes this code, it's meaningless to them. Because by the time they get that and decipher that, that code's already going to be changing. So what's going to happen is the website's going to be like, oh, time allotted to put in that password is now expired. There's a new code. Oh, now it's going to get eventually get to a point times out basically. So this program is called 1Password. I love it just because it has the 1Password capability all in one. With that being said, some sites will allow you to use your phone number as a, or they'll text you a code. Some websites you have no choice, honestly. I don't like that option because if somebody knows enough about you and calls your cell phone carrier, they can transfer your number to a whole new SIM card, and now they've got access to everything. So if you're getting a passcode sent to your phone number, well, it's not coming to you, it's going to the other person now. That's typically why I don't like using a phone number as a passcode. Some websites, that's the only option they give, so it's unavoidable. But the reality is that's where you get into a little bit more protecting your cellular logins and stuff like that, a little bit more, and protecting, having those things in place to make sure that someone can't just change your SIM card to another, or phone number to another SIM card. So this is probably my final point. Do your part. Cybersecurity starts with you and everyone. It's everyone's responsibility. Obviously, IT companies, they're there for a purpose and they're there to help guide and put those things in place and help out. But the reality of it is, I can't sit by you every day or you every day and every email that comes in and tracks, is this a legit email or not? And so understanding from your side and taking those precautions and looking for those signs and just with everything, not just the emails is a big one. And protecting yourself helps go a long way, and it's going to protect not just you personally, but it's going to protect your business. So that's just my contact information. I am completely open to any questions anybody has. If you have a little bit more, even a scenario you want to run by me, hey, this happened in my business, what would you advise that we do about this? Or you maybe had something happen in the past, and maybe my advice of what would have been better to take care of that, to mitigate that to not happen, or the steps to happening afterwards and stuff. I'm completely open. Cybersecurity is something that, and threats is something I take serious. I am an open book. I'm a person that, that's my direct cell phone number. If you have any type of questions, ask me. I'm completely open and want to offer any advice and any information that I can give to help everybody protect themselves, again, on and offline. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anthony. That was a lot of good information. Anthony is at a table back here, so, you know, he said he's open to any and all questions, so make sure you take advantage of that and stop by and talk to him if you have any questions. We're gonna take a 5